Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Mena, and I'm going to be talking about a little bit about numeric arrays. In order to understand what is an array, we need to think of an array as a group of data, or in this case, a group of elements. Now, each element has its own value and also its own ID that we call it index. Now, the value of each index, it can be at either an integer or a string. And the length of the array, it depends on the number of elements that contains inside of it. So how long is the group of elements inside? It depends of how many indexes are inside. So an example to explain a little bit more about arrays, I'm going to be explaining this, how to create and what is an array. So on the left side, on the equal sign, we declare the name of the array. On the right side of the equal sign, we declare the array. In this case, this array has 3 elements uh, with values. We haven't declared the values in this case, but it has 3 values. Now, each one of these values has its own index or IDs. uh, and this is an example of an array of strings, which in this case, we're going to be creating an array of names. So we can do it in 2 different ways. On the first, we're going to create an array with the name of names, and then we're going to uh, have 3 elements inside of this array, which are going to be names. So the values of this array are going to be names. In this case, it's going to be Ted Lewis, Sue Jones, and Ray Romas. Now, the other way to create an array is by multiple statements. So the first statements, we declare the name of the array, which in this case is names. But then when we create the array, we create it empty because we're going to be adding elements to this array on the other 3 lines or 3 statements. So in this case, um, we're going to be adding on the first index or the first ID is going to have a value of Ted Lewis. Okay. The second index or the second ID has a value of Sue Jones, and the third index or ID, it has a value of Ray Thomas. Sorry. Something important to remember with arrays is that uh, every element has its own ID or index, and it starts with the number 0. And this is very important to remember because if you want to refer to the index number 2 that has a value of Ray Thomas, if we were to want to get the value of Sue Jones, we need to use the index 1, because if we use 2, we will call the third index and not the second one. So on any array, the first element is start with the index 0, and that moves along the way. Now, this is another example of array, but with integers. And it's very similar to the first example with strings. So we can create an array of integers with one statement, declare the name of the array as numbers, and then we create the array with 5 elements inside, which in this case has the value of 8, 1, 20, 13, and 4. And we can do the same thing with multiple statements. First, we declare the name of the array, which is numbers. Then we create an empty array because we're going to be adding on the next statements the elements that belong to this array. So the first element of this array, it has an index of 0 with a value of 8. The second index um, of this array has an index of 1, and it has a value of 1. The third index of this array, it has a value of 20. The fourth index has a value of 13, and the fifth index of this array has a value of 4. Um, so some points important to remember. When we create arrays, we can mix it up with integers and strings. We either do integers or string. Something very important to remember that the first element of any array has an index of 0. And I hope these points can be useful for you, and good luck with the class.